Never have I ever had a harder lock on as soon as I found the background of the person, the shooter yesterday. I didn't even suspect it would go this far. Like the rabbit hole would go this far. The well would be so deep. But because I thought it was just like regular resentment from, you know, a collaborator with the American forces that was now either having his friends and family members, after all the work that he put in, serving alongside the colonial occupation, okay, the imperialist forces in Afghanistan. I thought he was just like angry, resentful, and wanted revenge. I didn't realize he directly was a part of the CIA as an asset, okay? Holy yeah, turns out the very same, he was Ryan Ruth's strongest soldier. Yeah, this is one of the units that Ryan Ruth was talking about, the NATO-trained Afghan soldiers. It turns out if Donald Trump had only sent him to Ukraine, as Ryan Ruth suggested, things would have been fine. 01 unit, a CIA death squad in Afghanistan that performed night raids that killed kids. Yeah. He was also, by the way, you know, Americans love talking about these barbaric forces use child soldiers. It turns out America is also just as barbaric in their utilization of child soldiers. But we'll obviously talk about the background and the details and how hard the Republicans fucked this one up. As always, immediately diving into conspiracies when it turns out there was plenty of real conspiracy, not a conspiracy theory, but real conspiracy. Yeah, a U.S. official says the Washington, D.C. shooting suspect was vetted by intelligence agencies and clean on all checks. Yeah, gonna need a live clip of Fox News finding that out. Good luck, absolute space girl. That clip is never going to happen because they already dove heavily into, oh, this is Afghan illegal. Joe Brandon did this. And it's like, well, first of all, American foreign policy is uniparty, especially when it comes to cruelty in all of our colonial subjects, in all of our endless occupation and endless militarism around the world. So in that regard, make no mistake, you know, Democrats are just to blame as Republicans are on this one. Okay. Having said that, Donald Trump's very own administration played a formative role in this person as well, in this person's development under Trump 1 and then certainly under Trump 2 as well, because he was brought into the country and got his residency under Trump 2. So the idea that this guy was an illegal immigrant is stupid. He was not. He is maybe perhaps too American. He got that American style PTSD doing American shit in Afghanistan in spite of being an Afghan national. Because of this, though, they're going to go along with their more white supremacist, white nativist attitudes, their white nativist anti-immigrant attitudes, in spite of the fact that, you know, there needs to be a better assessment of how we got here. Hassan and Joe Biden bringing in all the Muslims to do communism. Yeah, this is communism. Communism is when you work alongside the American occupation in Afghanistan and slaughter a bunch of Afghan nationals, get crippling PTSD, get evac'd into the United States of America, become a permanent resident, and then lose your mind, American veteran style, and then shoot a bunch of National Guardsmen in the head. Your facts don't matter if I ignore them. It's true. It's true. In any case, let's get into it. We'll obviously start with some details on what took place, but he was 4 years old when 9/11 happened and 15 when the CIA recruited him. Yeah, I mean, in some ways, he was destined to have an American veteran style PTSD moment. I think his entire life was designed around this. But yeah, let's get started.
News on the shooting of 2 National Guard members in Washington, right near the White House. Jay O'Brien starts us off with the latest on the investigation. Good morning, Jay.
Yeah, Rebecca, the scene is clear here now, but it was right at the entrance of this metro station where those 2 guardsmen were shot, ambushed in broad daylight. Our crew arriving here just moments after those shots rang out, a chaotic scene, people running for their lives. Other guards.
I'm going to keep it $150. This has been a really rough year for Republican commentators who are first to market whenever a shooting takes place, and they immediately go, this is woke, this is trans, this is Antifa, or this is the Democrats. Oh, this is an Afghan migrant. Oh my God, this is an undocumented immigrant. And then literally the very next day, they're like, oh my God, everything that we said was exactly the diametrical opposite. They can't even get their shit together. This is why you need to wait to do theory crafting. You can't just like immediately run in and rush in head first with biased narratives. Not that it matters to any of these goddamn losers, because they just go along and double down and triple down and quadruple down on this nonsensical bullshit that they're running with, and their audiences eat that slop up. But having said that, if you are even remotely invested in the truth, oftentimes these kinds of narratives fall flat.
This morning, new details emerging after a gunman shot 2 National Guardsmen in the heart of the nation's capital, just a block away from the White House, in what investigators are now calling a targeted attack.
The National Guard shot in the head.
The 2 guardsmen currently in critical condition, identified as 20-year-old Sarah Beckstrom and 24-year-old Andrew Wolf. Law enforcement identifying the lone suspect as 29-year-old Ramanullah Lakanwal, an Afghan national who came to the United States in 2021.
What we know about him is that he drove his vehicle across country from the state of Washington with the intended...
Awesome, by the way, having Janine Pirro be the guy. It's like Kash Patel, Janine Pirro, Pete Hegseth. What the are we doing, dude? It's crazy. I know it's just like, my issue here is minor. It's just like purely built around aesthetics, but, a wild set of circumstances.
The CIA director saying this morning, quote, the Biden administration justified bringing the alleged shooter to the United States in September 2021 due to his prior work with the U.S. government, including CIA. Sources telling ABC News Lakanwal was later granted asylum in April 2025 by the Trump administration. Investigators saying the shooter deliberately targeted the 2 guardsmen as they stood outside a busy metro station.
Conspiracies are spreading on the right-wing side. Oh, it's over. So are we ready to revisit that one time that days before Charlie Kirk was murdered, someone in Israel Googled the exact house number and street name and address where Tyler Robinson planted? Also the names of all the surgeons at the hospital, the buildings at the UVU, senior political. Oh, God. Okay. It's just wild. Like, this is literally fairly cookie cutter from A to B to C. Guy who is activated and resentful. Like, the conspiracy here is like CIA actions causing blowback on American soil. But for some reason, these guys can't comprehend it as like a normal, like a level 1 conspiracy theory. They have to go into level 12 conspiracy theories. Everything has to be more complicated. It's like, dude, instead of recognizing that recruiting a teenager into the CIA death squad that regularly targets civilians could have blowback down the line, the administration is just going to use this to further target immigrants. And the Republicans are going to go, oh, this is like, this is the Jewish CIA's actions or something. And Blue Anon will probably also go along with it in their own version where they'll say like, oh, the administration actually did this to further encroach on people's civil liberties. The administration will use this as an opportunity to further encroach on people's civil liberties and further justify military action on domestic soil. That is true. Having said that, I don't know if this was like activated deliberately. Okay, this was a sleeper cell that was activated deliberately or anything. Whereas, judging by what's going on here, it's opportunists leaning into whichever direction they want to, but it's a fairly basic.
Nancy Cordes is in West Palm Beach. Nancy, you've got new information this morning about the suspect. So what are we learning?
We are learning, Kelly, that this suspect was a leader of commandos in the Afghanistan war and that he worked closely with U.S. and...
I'm telling you right now, this is literally really bad day for the administration that wanted to use this as another opportunity to fucking lean into the Democrat Trantifa narrative. Really, really bad day overall for them. Because think about how excited Fox News was when they were like, oh my God, he's an Afghan migrant and an illegal immigrant,
Hold on. We just got this. I need to get to it. This just in, sources are telling Fox News that the shooter is an illegal immigrant from Afghanistan who came in during Operation Allies, welcome under the Biden administration.
Definitely not saying CIA. I mean, they won't say it, but we will. Actually, even the New York Times reported on the fact that he was CIA for the record. So just going to point that out. It's definitely, he was our guy. He was our guy, the most our guy that you can have.
One of the suspect's former Afghan colleagues tells CBS News the suspect was a commander who led a unit of Afghan commandos and special forces in southern Afghanistan and worked closely with U.S. and British forces. The former colleague says the suspect was a, quote, tough and solid commander who fought against the Taliban and helped escort and protect supply convoys. That same former colleague says the suspect had been deeply troubled and upset after the killing of a close friend who was also a commander, in Pakistan by unknown armed men. Last night, in a social media post, President Trump says that he wants to re-examine every single person who came to the U.S. from Afghanistan during the Biden administration. He also said that he is requesting that an additional 500 National Guard members be deployed to the nation's capital in the wake of this shooting.
I mean, yeah, don't let the admin. The admin is not going to waste this, though. They're going to fucking use this to continue along with whatever narratives they have. They're going to utilize this to justify further troop presence on U.S. soil. You know, it's just they're opportunists. I mean, they try to do it with the Charlie Kirk thing too. Except given the nature of Republican messaging here and the media environment, especially on the independent side here, I think it's going to fall flat again, because the Republicans are going to see this, like the MAGA Twitter guys are going to see this and go, oh, this is like, you know, deep state CIA, false flag, somehow, bring this back to Israel or something. The CIA is working alongside the Jews. I don't know, but like they are too disorganized to actually to tunnel in on an appropriate unified message here.
As President of the United States, I am determined to ensure that the animal who perpetrated this atrocity pays the steepest possible price. I can report tonight that based on the best available information, the Department of Homeland Security is confident that the suspect in custody is a foreigner who entered our country from Afghanistan, a hellhole on earth. He was flown in by the Biden administration in September 2021 on those infamous flights that everybody was talking about.
It's just strange because kind of feels like, one, that the Afghan withdrawal was your plan, and two, Biden just facilitated it, and two, he wasn't illegal. He wasn't illegally on U.S. soil. And also, you did continue the Afghan operations on Trump 1.
Nobody knew anything about it. His status was extended under legislation signed by President Biden, a disastrous president, the worst in the history of our country. This attack underscores the single greatest national security threat facing our nation. The last administration let in 20 million unknown and unvetted foreigners from all over the world, from places that you don't want to even know about. No country can tolerate such a risk to our very survival. An example is Minnesota, where hundreds of thousands of Somalians are ripping off our country.
What?
And
what the bro, that's awesome. That's crazy. That is, what the hell is happening here, bro? He went from Afghanistan, a real hellhole, and also Somalia, another Muslim nation. Think about it. All the Muslims, they're all doing Muslim style violence all the time. Okay, you know what? Let's actually first go into the Afghan zero unit night raids, okay? ProPublica, the New Yorker, made this animated movie, 16 minutes long, this animated piece covering the details of zero unit. Why am I talking about this? Well, it's because Rahmanullah Lakanwal was the Afghan man suspected of shooting 2 National Guard members, was in a CIA-trained group called Zero Units, also known as Ruthless Death Squads. This is Edward Wong's reporting. No one can predict how someone who kills in war or sees its horrors will change. These are CIA-backed units that would pluck young Afghans, including Rahmanullah, who was 15 at the time, apparently, when he was groomed to become a CIA death squad mercenary, okay, at the behest of the American forces, a child soldier. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, we will take a look at the background and what the Zero units did. But like when you hear about like SEAL Team 6 and all those like Navy SEAL guys, like basically what they're doing is targeted assassinations, right? Because that's like heavily specialized unit that requires a lot of training. The CIA has its own arm as well that will tap into the local population and train them to also engage in some of these ruthless civilian assassination programs. We've covered JSOC before, the Joint Special Operations Command, and what they do, what they're tasked with. It's like the Pentagon's wing of doing CIA style operations, mostly assassinations, right? Drug running, assassinations, things of that nature. But the reason why I'm showing you this is because the suspected shooter was in 0 unit. Okay, the man suspected of shooting 2 National Guard members, Rahmanullah Lakanwal, was once a part of a CIA-backed paramilitary group, one of several so-called 0 units, according to the Afghan and U.S. officials. These units, formerly known as counterterrorism pursuit teams, were trained to conduct night raids and clandestine missions across Afghanistan during the U.S. war in the country. By the time the United States had withdrawn from Afghanistan in August 2021, the units had officially become part of the Afghan intelligence service and included thousands of members. As the Afghan military dissolved and the U.S. military scrambled to evacuate thousands of people during the Taliban's rapid takeover, the 0 units were essential to securing the remaining U.S. and NATO bases in Kabul, Afghanistan's capital. For some 0 unit members, this ensured their eventual evacuation into the United States. Mr. Lakanwal was assigned to the 03 unit, according to an Afghan intelligence official, speaking on condition of anonymity because he wasn't allowed to comment publicly on the issue. The unit was responsible for operations around the southern province of Kandahar and beyond. Though the unit was based in the south, much of its leadership and members like Mr. Lakanwal were from Afghanistan's east. After the Taliban took over Afghanistan, many of the unit's members were evacuated with the United States' help, including its last commander, and resettled in the Seattle area. Several former members of the 0 unit living in the United States were terrified by what had happened. Reached by phone, they said they were trying to live like responsible citizens, working to build a life from scratch. The 0 units were largely recruited, trained, and equipped and overseen by the CIA, according to Human Rights Watch. U.S. Special Operations Forces working with the CIA also provided the units with ground support and intelligence during their operations. By the way, the New York Times won't say it, but I will. Their operations are just murdering civilians. Just so you know, like the New York Times is dancing around the subject matter, but most of it is just murdering people, okay? Door knocking, busting through doors, and just assassinating people. The units, however, operated largely outside a normal chain of command of the United States and Afghan forces. We did a whole lot of murder on our own under the watchful gaze of Joint Special Operations Command, as I talked about. So this was even more ruthless. This is the plausible deniability that you need. In July 2021, when the president of Afghanistan wanted the forces to defend Kandahar city against the advancing Taliban, he had to ask the CIA for the unit's aid, according to Afghan officials. The units also had a reputation for ruthlessness, with journalists and human rights groups referring to them as death squads. In a 2019 report, Human Rights Watch said it had documented several instances in which the strike forces were responsible for extrajudicial executions and enforced disappearances, indiscriminate airstrikes, attacks on medical facilities, and other violations of humanitarian law. This is so that the American government can wash its hands of the extra fucked up aspects of what they were doing in Afghanistan. Oh, we didn't do it. It was a third party. That's how you do it. You know, you delegate some of the more ruthless parts of your imprecise murder operations to the locals that you have trained specifically to do this. The reason why I think it's important to understand that is because you got to understand the mindset of this person, like how we got here. Okay, especially when the regular forces in Afghanistan were also engaging in wanton acts of violence and cruelty and death, indiscriminate death and destruction. So just understand how much worse this was in comparison to the regular units and what they were doing. In one instance, in 2018, an Afghan paramilitary force unit raided a home in Nangarhar province in eastern Afghanistan, shooting and killing 5 members of a family, including an older woman and a child, according to Human Rights Watch. Taliban officials have also condemned the units. On Thursday, an official in Nangarhar accused the group of looting during the fall of the U.S.-backed government. The CIA has denied the allegations of brutality among the units. Shocking, saying that they were the result of Taliban propaganda. But I just want people to understand why people in the global south resent America. When a lot of people ask this question in the United States of America, this is one aspect of it, just a sliver. When I tell you why people actually would rather choose a local villain or a fundamentalist group over an American puppet, this is part of that reason. An identical thing also happened in Iran that led to the revolution. This is why. This is yet another reoccurring example of everything that I talk about. Literally everything that I talk about. Do you understand? Whether it be blowback, whether it be the ruthlessness of American forces and American-backed forces, and why there is always, why there's so much animosity and so much anger, and why sometimes people actually choose another global hegemon over the United States of America to align themselves with because they think it's going to be better.